All right, guys. Hello. I'm here to walk us through our two poems from our first multiple choice section. I have the poems up here. I couldn't figure out a great way to have you see everything. So I'm just going to read through each poem once and then read the questions aloud. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on any single question, um, but there are a couple that I know we as a class, struggled with. The grades were, if you're going to put a letter grade to it, which I wouldn't suggest doing, were pretty wide range, which is kind of expected for this first one. But again, it's only 23 total points on the semester, so virtually nothing. But I wanted us to give a good, um, so it's going to start to get a sense, a feel for what these things are like. So I kind of chose what I thought was one poem that was pretty easy in facing it, but also had a pretty difficult question set, and then a more difficult poem, the frog poem, that had generally easier questions, although there are a couple tricky ones there too. So with that, let's read through facing it first. So we get italics. Here's kind of a note for the readers. I think actually this was originally published with a picture, I believe, uh, of the memorial. It says the speaker in this poem is visiting the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. The monument inscribed with names of the Americans who died or disappeared in the Vietnam War consists of two 250-foot long black granite walls converging in a V. So they tell you this because this V imagery and the black shiny granite are really important to help kind of with the visuals that we're trying to that the poem's conveying. Okay, facing it. My black face fades, hiding inside the black granite. I said I wouldn't. Damn it, no tears. I'm stone. I'm flesh. My clouded reflection eyes me like a bird of prey, the profile of night slanted against the morning. I turn this way, the stone lets me go. I turn that way, I'm inside the Vietnam Veterans Memorial again, depending on the light to make a difference. I go down the 58,022 names, half expecting to find my own in letters like smoke. I touch the name Andrew Johnson. I see the booby traps, the white flash. Name shimmer on a woman's blouse, but she walks away. The names stay on the wall when she walks away. It's not a great reading, I apologize. Brushstrokes flash, a red bird's wings cutting across my stare. The sky, a plane in the sky. A white vet's image floats closer to me, then his pale eyes look through me, mine. I'm a window. He's lost his right arm inside the stone. In the black mirror, a woman's trying to erase names. No, she's brushing a boy's hair. All right, so question one. And as we go, I'll kind of walk through what, not every single wrong answer, but maybe some of the ones that were, I went through and I like looked at every single question, which one was like, which wrong answers were most chosen by you guys. For the most part, every question, with the exception of two, the correct answer was the one that was most chosen. But there were some where there was a pretty wide disparity, or another question that, or another wrong answer that had like a lot of, like the second most easily number of guys pick it. All right, so question number one: the poem is best described as this one. We actually didn't do. We mostly got this right, but this was one where we had a runaway wrong answer too. The answer here was a series of interrelated impressions, meaning it just kind of goes, you're kind of following his brain and his images and some flashbacks, and then look a blouse, oh look a plane. So it's we don't really get a great strong image. It's more described as the answer has interrelated impressions. The overwhelmingly popular wrong answer here was a sentimental reminiscence. Sentimental generally doesn't necessarily have the negative connotation here. Um, and also, I don't know that I would say it's reminiscence because it feels very present. I mean, it's literally in the present tense, not to say that it necessarily is in the present tense. Um, but I think sentimentality is a different kind of connotation to it. Number two was this, one, two, three, and which of the following. Um, which we'll see a lot of this semester and on the test. Number two reads, line 5 suggests which of the following. 1, the speaker's attempt to resist emotion. 2, sorry, I'm having some issues, the speaker's sense of oneness with the memorial. And 3, the speaker's philosophical conflict with the government. So we definitely have 1 and 2. So the answer is C. I think everyone got that question correct, I believe. 3, line 9 presents an example of. All right, so we simply scan to line 9. I turn this way, the stone lets me go. Stone letting me go. It now has agency. It is personification. Number 4, lines 20 to 21. All right, so always for context, I'll generally highlight a larger section or look there. Lines 20 to 21 most strongly convey the speaker's what? And the line is, names shimmer on a woman's blouse, but when she walks away, the names stay on the wall. So the idea that the names stay there, but she's able to walk away. The answer here is D. Most strongly convey the speaker's sense of how permanent is the fate of those named. Number 5, this was a question we were kind of split on. What does the speaker convey in lines 29 and 31? So that's the end of the poem, right? 29 through 31, excuse me. In the black mirror, a woman's trying to erase names. No, she's brushing a boy's hair. Now there's the answer that we went with, a lot of us went with, that was incorrect, was B, a desire to recapture innocence. There, you're doing a lot of work there that isn't necessarily in the poem. To say that the speaker wants to, I mean, like the young boy there with the hair might be an image of innocence, or an image of what, you know, these guys on the wall ultimately were, for sure. But it's the erasing of the names as well that make E, an uncertainty about the meaning of a gesture, the most correct answer, even if it's the most literal. One more time, it says, what does the speaker convey? It doesn't say what does he infer, what does he imply, what is he metaphorically discussing? What does he convey? Meaning what is on the page. Okay, this is a question type that's really easy to overthink. And I think a lot of us did when we said a desire to recapture innocence. Literally, it's just uncertainty. He's not sure what this gesture that she's making in the wall is initially. So a good lesson there would be answer the question being asked. The AP exam, same thing with the SATs, the ACT, is not always going to ask you for a figurative reading. When it wants a figurative reading, it will ask you for a figurative reading. This one says, what does the speaker convey? That's all it says. We want as literal a reading as we can. Number 6, the mirror-like quality of the granite wall allows the speaker to experience, sorry, I keep trying to move mine, to experience all the following in the poem except, and we had 5 choices, I guess I'll read through them. Self-effacement. Self-effacement, by the way, means, it's a word that you'll see on the AP probably. It means like not drawing attention to yourself, to be self-effacing. B, self-aware. C, self-respect. D, the illusion of having been transformed. E, identification with the memorialized veterans. And all of those are experienced except C, self-respect. 7, all of the following contrasts are integral to the poem except, and this one's, I think almost all of us got this one right. The answer here is A, happiness and sorrow. The other ones that were integral, other contrasts, were past and present, light and dark, illusion, reality, fusion, separation. 8, the imagery of the poem is characterized by. So the answer here is transformation and duality. Almost every image goes, you think it's one thing, but then it's another, but often that confusion helps generate meaning and helps us see the speaker's emotional state. Oddly, maybe not oddly, the answer that was second most picked was B, aural and tactile qualities. There's definitely some tactile qualities-ish, but it's mostly a visual, him looking at the wall. And aural, I think even in class, someone may have asked me what the word means. Aural is related to auditory. One thing that I did not add to that big sheet of poetic devices was like types of imagery. So just to hit them real fast, Visual imagery is pretty obvious. Olfactory deals with smell. Gustatory deals with taste. Auditory imagery, but the AP calls it aural imagery, is sound. And then tactile is obviously stuff you can, stuff you can touch. All right. Moving on. 9, the title suggests which of the following: 1, affirming one's innocence; 2, viewing an evocative object; or 3, acknowledging one's identity. So this would be D, 2, and 3. It is not about affirming one's innocence. 10, the opening image is one that most clearly reflects. This is another question that we, there was a wrong answer that was very popular. My black face fades, hiding inside the black granite. A lot of us went with self-denial there. I don't know that the fact that he's here at all is important. I think self-denial is a very specific kind of emotional state. The answer here is human frailty, that his face is fading in the way that they faded. What the black granite here represents, it represents death, demise. Some guys made it onto the wall, some guys didn't. So human frailty is the correct answer. 11 was actually, we were all over the place with 11. So I think this might just be just a difficult worded question. Like there wasn't one answer that any of us chose that was most popular. 11 is the image of the white vet, lines 25 to 1 to 29, primarily. Here we go. A white vet's image floats closer to me than his pale eyes look through me. So the answer here is E, literal and metaphoric. Like he is literally there, right? This white vet is literally behind him looking or whatever. But metaphorically, people are looking through the vets, which is a major part of the veteran experience, coming home from Vietnam, and even now with like PTSD and not understanding what someone is going through, even in some cases like this, where you went kind of through the same thing. So it is both a literal image as well as a metaphoric image. He's literally looks through him because it's a reflection, but also he feels like he is he says as much that I am a window, right? 12, the images of the white flash and the woman's blouse are a strong example of. A lot of us went symbols here, but unless we're able to make some kind of, especially textual based argument around what the woman's blouse might symbolize, a symbol is a very, very specific thing. Maybe if in a different poem or a different context, or if we knew more about this moment, we could say that it's symbolic. But here the best answer is juxtaposition, because we go from a booby trap, an explosion, the death of Andrew Johnson, presumably, to a woman, and we can almost imagine it's a white blouse that is there looking at basically what amounts to a really, really cool, interesting memorial / piece of art. So like the death and then this like prime, coming here to pay respects or just think about this as a piece of art, as I mentioned. It's juxtaposition, two very, very different ideas right next to each other. 13, it is important that the reader notes the significance of all of the following except, the answer here is D, the woman of the final image is a widow. What I'd encourage, I don't know why I didn't start the video with this, is to pull up the answers from on campus so you can kind of go along and see what I'm skipping out on just for the purposes of time, which I feel like I'm going long anyway. I apologize. 14, the wall's mirror-like quality may be most attributed to its, the answer here is A, ability to reflect images of things in front of it. It's a very, very literal answer. 15, the speaker is most probably, this answer is C, a veteran. All right, so our last little section here is on the frog in the swimming pool. I think this poem came out in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Again, we'll do a quick reading, and then I'll blow through the questions. The frog in the swimming pool. A wet green velvet scums the swimming pool, furring the cracks. The deep end swims in a hat full of rain, not enough to float the bread spinning barge, the tug of shopping cart. Green wet himself, the bullfrog holds his court, sounding the summons to a life so low he's yet to lure a mate. Under the lip of concrete slab he reigns, a rumble of rock, a flickering of sticky tongue that's licked at any morsel winged into view. How would he love her? Let me count the waves that scrape the underside of night and then let go. The depth of love unplumbed, the breadth, the height of the pool, all he needs to know. How do I love him? Let me add the weight of one hush to another, the mockingbird at midnight echoing itself, not him. One silence torn into two, sewn shut again. Down to his level, in time wings everything. He calls the night down on his unlovely head, on the slimy skin that breathes the slimy air. The skin that's shed and still, he is the same. The first voice in the world, the last each night. His call has failed to fill the empty house across the street, the vacant swing that sways half-heartedly, the slide slid into rust, the old griefs waiting burial by the new. So obviously it's about a frog, and a frog who does not have a mate holding court, like he's the king of this little crappy little area. The idea that he's the first and last sound of the day, and then bullfrogs ribbit in the morning, they ribbit at nighttime. It's just a cool, very, very image-based and kind of funny, kind of sad poem. So number 16. In the poem, the frog is mainly depicted as A, isolated and unattractive. I think almost all of us got that one right. 17, in lines 1 through 4, lines 1 through 4 incorporate all of the following except a wet green velvet scums the swimming pool, furring the cracks. So that would be unconventional verbs. Like, yes, that we understand what the verbs are, but like the verb, like scum as a verb, furring as a verb, the deep end swims in a hat full of rain. Yeah, the verbs are just really interesting, big subject for creations. There's a lot of visual imagery, there's a lot of tactile imagery, and there is metaphor. So it uses everything except regular meter. We could try to figure out the meter of this poem. I was trying to do it before I started this, or at least even in any individual line, and it's like spondy, trochee, I am spondy. It's all over the place. 18 in line 6 contains which of the following? And I think everyone got this right. Sounding the summons of a life so low, it's alliteration. 19, the effect of the illusion in lines 14 or 11 to 14. So this is another one we were kind of all over the place. So they are telling us that this is an allusion. It is an allusion to Elizabeth Browning's Let Me Count the Ways. It's a very, very famous sonnet. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. How do I love him? Let me see. Oops. Line 11 starts. How would he love her? Let me count the waves that scrape the underside of night and then let go. The depth of love unplumbed, the breadth of height of the pool, all he needs to know. How do I love him? Let me count the weight of one hush to another, yada, yada, yada. So this is a tough one. You can look at all of the incorrect answers as well, but the correct one is E, introduce an element of sympathetic humor. I mean, if this frog is some hopeless romantic, but he's also described as kind of like gross, and it's like a weird, slimy, abandoned pool. And then all of a sudden you have this like famous kind of like Browning sonnet in the middle of it. We're supposed to imagine him as like, you know, longing from a balcony or something. It's definitely humor, but also sympathetic humor. We should feel bad for the frog. Lines 20 to 21, he calls to air, suggests that the frog, right here, he calls the night down on his unlovely head, on the slimy skin that breathes the slimy air. The answer is D, is naturally linked to the scene he inhabits. The air is slimy, he is slimy. 21, the last 4 lines suggest that the frog, and this is a question where we had a wrong answer that was picked a lot, so I'll talk about that one too. His call has failed to fill the empty house across the street, the vacant swing that sways half-heartedly, the slide slid into rust, the old griefs waiting burial by the new. So literally, his ribbiting has not awoken the people across the street. So the answer here is B, that he lacks the power to affect the course of human events. It's, again, very, very literal. There is a metaphorical reading to this, right? Like he hasn't filled his own heart, and he can't even wake up the people across the street. Like that house feels empty like he does, whatever. But the answer here that most of us chose that was wrong was C, that the frog is the cause of the suffering that surrounds him. And I think we're probably thrown by the he has failed. But if we look at the rest of the context, what they're talking about is is a house that he is like unrelated to, completely separated from. So be careful not to like dig into like one word specifically. I know last week when we were doing some other multiple choice together, there was like, oh well, this is on the page. I see the word right here. Again, we need to think about context. We need to think of the actual image that's being conveyed. 22, excuse me. The poem makes use of which of the following: one, tercet stanzas; two, run-on lines; and three, refrains. And the answer here is one and two, tercet stanzas and run-on lines. Run-on lines is what the AP might use to say in jammed lines, basically. Refrains would be like an image, or usually literally like a couplet that gets repeated throughout, and we don't have that here at all. And finally, 23, in the poem, the speaker is most concerned with representing the blank. And the answer here, most of us got this one right, is pervasiveness of loneliness and decay. He is very lonely. Everything around him is rusting, it's slimy, it's gross, it's rubble, it's falling apart. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that made sense. Obviously, reach out to me if you want to see your answer sheet, like what you picked. If like you went through yours as we're doing this, and you're like, wait, I had all those questions, all those answers. Feel free to email me. I'll send you a screenshot of what you submitted to me. Thanks, guys, and I will see you soon.